I told you about the farm that my brother Jerry and I own in Kentucky, along with our wives. We split the farm after my daddy passed away, and we purchased it from my other brothers. We bought them out. And he has one side of the road, I have the other side, literally two different counties. And on my side, I mentioned the beautiful creek that runs down through the middle of the property. But on my brother Jerry's side, there's another creek. And this creek, back in the 60s, my daddy hired his cousin to come with a bulldozer, and they straightened that creek out. But they were very, very careful not to touch a certain section of it where there is a spring. And that spring, over all the years that we've owned that farm, and there's been droughts, there's been times when the Licking River, which goes through Cynthiana, not too far away, completely bone dry. But that little spring never stopped flowing, and it never has. Now you say, well, Pastor King, what are we talking about here? Well, I made the comparison yesterday about the flowing of the little creek that runs through our side of the property, and this little creek with that little spring in it, where Jesus talks about the living water. And he talks about how that it flows like the river, living water. And then we have in the 4th chapter of the Gospel of John, when Jesus met this woman at the well of Sychar. And he said to her, he says, if you knew who you were talking to, you'd be asking for a living water. And if you ever got a taste of the living water, you'll never thirst again. And I love the scriptures that talks about this. Because as John said, the water that I shall give him shall be in him, a well of water springing up into everlasting life. I love that. I love the concept of that, because what Jesus is saying to us, there is a river, and it is a spiritual river. And it is a river where the Spirit of God flows. And we may not understand all of it. We don't know where exactly it flows, except the Word of God does say that it flows from the throne of God. But all of this simply tells me this, is that something that I have said so many times on this broadcast, that we need to know that there is a Spirit that flows, and there's a Spirit within us. As it says in the book of Genesis, when God created man, we were God-breathed, literally the breath of God that flows up as a well of living water that ministers to your soul and to everlasting life. It is such a beautiful concept. And I've thought about this at times when I just walked along the side of this little creek on our property in Kentucky and just saw that beautiful flowing water and realized that Jesus has told us that that water lives. The Spirit and presence of God lives, and it'll minister to your soul. This is Pastor Jack King with the gospel on the radio broadcast.